Every day, like clockwork, I'd return home from my solitary desk job to the comfort of my old but cozy apartment, the one I'd lived in alone for the past 3 years. The hum of city life was a constant companion, the sounds of distant sirens, occasional car horns, and the persistent murmur of people below. But inside my apartment, it was different. The silence was palpable, comforting. It was my sanctuary. One evening, after a particularly long day, I stepped into my apartment and immediately felt a rush of warm, steamy air hit me. The bathroom door was slightly ajar, and I could see the wispy trails of steam leaking out. That wasn't right. I lived alone, and I'd been out all day. The tap in the bathroom sink was dripping, every drop echoing louder than it should. I hesitated at the door, my hand frozen on the knob, debating whether I should push it open. I did. The mirror was fogged up, a thin layer of condensation covering it, and the shower was wet as if someone had just used it. My heart began to pound, each beat echoing the dripping tap. "Is someone here?" I called out, instantly regretting drawing attention to myself. My own voice seemed to reverberate off the cold tile walls. Silence. I did a quick search of my apartment, the bedroom, the kitchen, even the tiny balcony. There was no sign of forced entry, and all the windows were locked from the inside. Reluctantly, I tried to brush it off as a plumbing issue. Maybe the pipes were just acting up. However, the following day was the same. I came home to a steamed bathroom and a wet shower floor. This time, I noticed a detail that made my stomach turn, a faint, wet footprint on the bath mat. It was too large to be mine. Sleep didn't come easily that night. Every creak of the floorboards, every distant car horn, made me jump. The bathroom door remained firmly shut, the thought of opening it unbearable. Days turned into a week, and the phenomenon persisted. At times, I'd find other little signs, a misplaced shampoo bottle, a differently positioned towel, even once, a strand of hair that wasn't mine in the drain. Then, one evening, as I cautiously entered the bathroom, I noticed something on the fogged-up mirror. It looked like the outline of a handprint, larger and broader than mine, with elongated fingers. I had to get to the bottom of this. The next day, I set up a discreet camera in the bathroom, angled to capture whoever, or whatever, was using my shower in my absence. That night, after returning from work, I immediately checked the footage, my fingers trembling as I played back the video. Hours of empty footage passed. Then, around mid-afternoon, the bathroom door opened slowly. A tall, shadowy figure emerged, almost blending into the dimness of the apartment. It didn't seem solid, more like a hazy outline, but distinctly human. It moved with purpose, turning on the shower and standing under the cascading water. Moments later, it turned off the water and left, fading as it exited the room. I was paralyzed with fear. What was this? Why was it here? How was this possible? One evening, after another unsettling discovery of a steamed bathroom, I ran into my elderly landlord in the hallway. He could see the distress on my face, and in a moment of vulnerability, I shared my experiences with him. He looked at me with a somber expression, hesitating for a moment, as if weighing the consequence of sharing a buried secret. "I didn't think I'd ever need to bring this up," he began, his voice heavy. "Many years ago, a man lived in your apartment. He died tragically after slipping in the shower." The revelation hit me like a ton of bricks. My mind raced, connecting the dots. The handprint on the mirror, the figure on the camera footage, it all made an eerie kind of sense now. My landlord continued. "After the accident, some tenants reported unusual occurrences, just like you have, but it's been years since the last incident. I thought it had all settled." The weight of the history hanging in the very walls of my apartment was suffocating. The realization that I was living in the same space where such a tragedy occurred and possibly experiencing the echoes of that man's final moments was too much to bear. "I can't stay here," I confessed, my voice shaky. He nodded in understanding. "I can't blame you. Some memories are too persistent, and some places just never let go. Within days, I packed my belongings and moved out. The familiar hum of city life, which once felt like a distant backdrop, now seemed to pull me into its embrace, a comforting barrier against the memories of that haunted apartment. The day began like any other in my solitary apartment. Living alone had always given me a sense of independence, but by the end of this particular day, that solitude would be the source of my unease. As I returned from work, an anomaly caught my eye. A nondescript envelope lay on my dining table. No one else had a key, and I certainly didn't remember placing it there. The envelope bore no address, no sender's name, just the word watch, scrawled in blocky handwriting. Inside, predictably, was a USB drive. Curiosity gnawed at me, so I plugged it into my computer, ensuring all safeguards were up. The single file on it was a video titled nightsleep.mp4. I hesitated momentarily before clicking it. The footage was me. It was me in my bedroom, asleep. The time-stamped video displayed it was from just the previous night. From the soft rise and fall of my chest to the familiar dim lighting, everything appeared as it would on any given night. Panic set in. I had never installed cameras in my apartment. Not in the bedroom, not anywhere. Racing through each room, my desperate search confirmed that. There were no cameras, no devices. Nothing. How then did someone have this intimate footage of me? The video had no strange occurrences, no eerie shadows or background noises. It was just hours of me, sleeping, which in some ways made it even more unsettling. How? Why? My mind raced, looking for explanations. A hidden camera? A drone outside the window? But my bedroom was on the 8th floor, and the windows had blinds. Night fell, and sleep became an unthinkable task. My sanctuary felt violated, and every little sound from the building became a threat. My mind played tricks, making me see things in shadows that weren't there. On edge, I reached out to friends. I told them about the USB, the video, the invasive feeling of being watched. While some were skeptical and joked about a secret admirer, others were genuinely concerned, advising me to contact the police. The next morning, with dark circles under my eyes, I approached the local precinct. They took the USB, promising to have their tech team look into it. But I could see the uncertainty in their eyes. In a city rife with tangible crimes, an inexplicable video stood on shaky ground. Days morphed into nights, with my paranoia only growing. Friends offered to let me crash at their places, but fear kept me rooted. I needed to know. I began scouring the apartment every night, checking for any new envelopes, any hints, and any explanations. About a week later, another envelope appeared. This time it was placed neatly on my bedside table. The eerie familiarity struck again. Another USB. With trembling hands, I plugged it in. The footage showed me once more, asleep in my bed. But this time, it panned, moving through the apartment. It showed the living room, the kitchen, even the bathroom. Every intimate corner of my life, displayed for an unseen observer. There was still no sign of how the video was recorded. No reflections captured an intrusive device or person. It was as if the walls themselves were watching. Desperation made me do the unthinkable. I stayed awake the entire night, hiding in a closet, hoping to catch this voyeur. Hours passed, punctuated by the rhythm of my heartbeat. But nothing happened. Dawn approached, and I emerged, defeated. As days went by, no more envelopes arrived. The police hit dead ends. The USBs bore no fingerprints, no traces. The videos had no embedded data to trace back to a source. To them, it was a disturbing mystery, but not one they could solve with conventional means. I never found out who or what recorded those videos. No more footage appeared, but the damage was done. The walls of my apartment, once a comforting barrier, now felt like silent spectators to my life. The idea of moving crossed my mind, but a voice inside me questioned, would it even make a difference? The tapes, while void of any immediate threats, brought to light a simple, haunting truth: privacy, that precious commodity, could be stripped away in an instant, leaving one exposed and vulnerable in what should be their safest haven. It was a reminder that terror doesn't always lurk in dark alleys or behind grotesque masks. Sometimes it's the simple act of being observed when you least expect it. Living alone in my quaint old apartment was an experience I often compared to sipping vintage wine. It was peaceful, full of character, and slightly unpredictable. The wooden floors creaked occasionally. The wind often whistled through gaps in the ancient windows, and every now and then there would be a draft that I couldn't trace. But all of these added to the charm. However, one evening, things took a turn that I couldn't attribute to the age of the building or its quirks. It started simply enough. Coming out of the bedroom one morning, I blinked in surprise to find my cozy armchair was no longer tucked into its usual corner, but was oddly positioned in the center of the living room. I brushed it off, presuming I might have moved it while cleaning and forgot. But then, a few days later, the dining table had shifted. It wasn't just a slight move, it had rotated a complete 90 degrees. The chairs, eerily, remained in their original positions, now facing away from the table. This was peculiar. I started to consider that maybe someone had access to my apartment, perhaps an old tenant with a forgotten key. But nothing was ever missing, and there were no signs of intrusion. One fateful night, as I lay wrapped in the quiet embrace of my sheets, a sound echoed through the silence, the unmistakable scrape of wood on wood. My heart pounded loudly in my ears, every horror story and thriller movie scene racing through my mind. I strained my ears, trying to discern any more sounds. After what felt like an eternity, I mustered the courage to investigate. Stepping out, the noise halted abruptly, replaced by an oppressive silence. The dim, ambient light from the street lamps outside streamed in, revealing a room that was almost unrecognizable. The furniture was rearranged entirely. The couch, previously against the wall, now sat bizarrely in front of my kitchen door. The coffee table was on the opposite side of the room, and the bookshelf, which held memories of years of avid reading, was turned facing the window. Yet, there was no sign of any intruder, no hint of movement, just an unsettling stillness. Days turned into weeks, and the pattern became dreadfully familiar. At random nights, the scraping sounds would echo, and each time I dared to look, I would be met with a rearranged living room. The tension of waiting for the sounds became a nightly ordeal. I even tried staying up all night, waiting in the dark, hoping to catch the moment when things moved. But it never happened when I was watching. I opened up to a close friend, seeking some logical explanations, or even just a comforting word. She offered to stay over, probably convinced that it was stress or fatigue playing tricks on my mind. But that night, as we settled in, the familiar dragging sound began, clearer and somehow more ominous with another person beside me witnessing it. We both sat up, frozen. My friend's face turned pale, her eyes wide with terror. Mustering our collective courage, we stepped out to the living room. And just like before, the noise ceased instantly. But the aftermath was clear. The room was altered once again, each piece of furniture finding a new spot as if the room was a puzzle being rearranged by an unseen hand. She left at dawn, too unnerved to speak much. Her parting words were a whispered plea for me to leave the apartment. But how could I? This was my sanctuary, my home. The memories I had built here held me anchored. However, with each passing event, the apartment's walls, once warm and welcoming, began to feel cold, almost watchful. It was as if they held secrets, ancient and inscrutable, that I wasn't privy to. The air grew thick with tension, every night brimming with anticipation. Ultimately, I decided to move. The memories of those nights still linger, casting a long, mysterious shadow over my past. The apartment remains, standing tall and proud, holding within it stories that are perhaps best left untold.